So let's begin our Megillah. So we're in Megillah Esther, we're in chapter 1. In your books, that's page 2. And where are we in Jewish history? Before we jump into the Megillah, we have to get a context of where we are and who we are with. Okay, where are the Jewish people? What's happened so far? Because the Megillah opens, you'll see, at a party. And most people open the Megillah, they're like, okay, there's a king called Achashverosh, throws a party. But they don't actually tell you in the Megillah why it's hinted at, and we're going to see there's a lot of hints in the Megillah to tell us what the party is all about. But if you look at it in context, you'll see this party is a terrible, terrible party. And what is happening over there, what is being celebrated, and the attractions they had over there, and the ornaments they had, and the designs, and all the stuff that's at the party itself is very, very relevant, and it's going to reveal a lot to us. When you understand that, you'll understand why it's so bad that the Jewish people attended this party. Because we'll see, truth be told, the fact they attended this party was actually a blemish on the Jewish people as a whole. So let's have a look where we are in history, first of all, in context. So we know the Jewish people entered into the land of Israel under Yehoshua in the Jewish year 2488. And 400 years later, came along King David, and he built the foundations to the first Beis HaMikdash. And then his son Shlomo HaMelech built the first Beit HaMikdash that stood for 410 years. Eventually the temple was destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar. Okay? He comes along and he destroys the entire temple in the Jewish year 3338. Okay, let's start with that year. So 3338 is the year that Nebuchadnezzar destroys the Beit HaMikdash. That's the first temple. Okay, he's the Babylonian tyrant and king, and the temple is destroyed, and many of the Jewish people are exiled at that time and sent around the world. Okay? Now, this is very, very important. The prophet Yirmiyahu made a prophecy that was to come true. And this is very important as well. And actually, if you understand this, a lot more of the story will make sense. Without this, a lot of the story does not make sense. Jeremiah the prophet warned the people that if they didn't do teshuvah, they didn't repent, the first temple will be destroyed, and we would be exiled for, anybody know how long? 70 years. That's very important. 70 years was the amount of time that the Jewish people would be exiled before their return to the land of Israel and the rebuilding of the second temple. So they were told this was a short, sharp exile. And this is one of the 4 exiles of the Jewish people. The Babylonian exile, which became the Paras and Madai exile. Okay? This one over here is the exile. It's going to last for 70 years. The problem was the following. The Jewish people did not know when this 70 years was going to begin. When does the clock start on the 70 years? Is it when the Babylonians came in? Is it when the early people were thrown out of Eretz Israel? Was it later? Was it when they took over the land? At what point are we in exile? That was a big question, and Jews and non-Jews had their own equations. Achashverosh had his version of when that 70 years began and started. Haman had his version. The Jewish people had their version, but no one was too sure. So we knew how long the exile was going to be. We knew the exile was going to be 70 years, but we didn't know when it was going to end, because no one was exactly sure when it was actually going to begin. Does that make sense? We got that. So that was really one of the problems over here. Belshazzar took over from Nebuchadnezzar. He took over from him, and what he did was he said the 70 years actually started when his predecessor Nebuchadnezzar took the throne. Actually, it was his grandfather. Took the throne. Okay? So Belshazzar, who came later over here, and he dated the years from earlier, so much so that in his lifetime, he said 70 years is over, and he threw a party. This is Belshazzar, who took over from Nebuchadnezzar. Okay?
So he said that as Nebuchadnezzar took the throne?
Yeah, that's when the 70 years started. At some point, that 70 years finished, and according to his calculation, it was 3389. Okay? He made that calculation and said, that's when the whole thing is done, that's when it's finished. He threw a party at this point, and if you want, there is a very famous painting of Rembrandt of this party, and you see Belshazzar is dressed up in this very famous painting of Rembrandt, which was detailed in Tanakh and Daniel, and there's writing on the wall, because the morning after, Belshazzar threw this party celebrating what he thought was the end of the 70 years, which wasn't the end of the 70 years, because he started calculating too early. He started calculating from the time of Nebuchadnezzar's accession, growing up to the throne. He was too early. Hashem punished him, and he was killed the morning after this. Okay? So the 70 years of Babylon, 70 years of Bavel, that was predicted, was misinterpreted by him, and the action finished with him. In 3392, Achashverosh, you've all heard of him, of course, takes the throne. Now, Belshazzar, okay, is related to Nebuchadnezzar. Okay? So we see there's a royal line coming through. Achashverosh, Xerxes, as he's referred to, he was not part of that royal line. He did not come from royal blood. He did not come from royal blood. He was a military leader. He had tremendous great strategies. He started actually with pretty humble beginnings. And that is also, this is important information, because the fact that he didn't come from royal line, unlike his father, who was the midst of an evil Merodach, who was just, don't worry about him, and Nebuchadnezzar, he was not part of that. Even Vashti came from Nebuchadnezzar, a granddaughter, and Achashverosh married her, okay, in order to cement, we're going to see, and give his kingship and rulership prominence by marrying into royalty. This is actually very, very common in the day. Royalty marries royalty. Happens less nowadays, but that was the way it was. Actually, sometimes shidduchim, marriages were made purely because people came from different royal families in order to make peace between countries. Not so romantic, but that was the reality.
He was doing it in a way to prove himself?
Yes, we're going to see. And he's going to be extremely insecure about his position, not coming from royal line. He's going to be very, very insecure about that until a certain point. Which we're going to get to in a moment. So now we've had Nebuchadnezzar take control, Belshazzar, who takes over because Nebuchadnezzar dies eventually. He takes control. He dies because he miscalculates these 70 years of the exile. Okay, I didn't tell you what Belshazzar was dressed up as for a reason, but you'll see in a few moments what he was dressed up as and why, and that's very, very important. And by the way, this is going to be one of the themes that's going to go through the Megillah is clothing. People getting dressed up as other people, okay, which we still do. So we're going to see where that custom actually comes from, the idea of people getting dressed up. So now we're going to jump, not too long, just 3 years. We're going to jump 3 years. So Nebuchadnezzar, gone and dead. Okay? He destroyed the first temple. We have the year for that. Okay, that's the first temple destroyed. Okay? By the way, what happens to all the stuff they took from the temple? There's a lot of stuff in there. There's gold, there's silver, there's tapestries, there's a menorah, there's an ark if they got hold of it, which most people they didn't. What happens to all this stuff? Anyone know?
You kept it.
You keep it, all right? And sometimes you melt it down, you sell it, or you hold it as a sign of victory. But what happens when the dictator dies? Then where does it go? The next dictator takes it. He grabs all the stuff and he keeps it for himself. And then when he dies, it gets passed down again and again and again. So the last person in line is Achashverosh. So now at this point, although he's not in Israel, he is in Paras, is where he is. That's where it comes. He's in Paras. He's actually going to be in the capital of Paras, which is capital of Persia. Great Neck. It's an old joke. No, that's going to be Shushan, which in modern days is a small town beside Hamadan, because that's where Esther and Mordechai are still buried on the outskirts of there, and many Persian people would actually go on a pilgrimage on Erev Purim, Purim itself, to visit the kever, the kevarim of Mordechai and Esther. There's actually videos online you can see of people touring the tomb of Mordechai and Esther, actually in modern day Iran. Okay, so that's where the action happens. Very interesting videos. Okay, so now Achashverosh has taken over. He's now sucked all the wealth, because when you conquer another nation and beat them, you take all their stuff. Right? You become rich. You take all the loot. Right? You become loaded with stuff. So that's going to happen here as well. So now we're going to jump 3 years to the Jewish year 3394. That's because we count this year. We count the first year. 2, 3, 4. We count that year, and now he's in the 3rd year of his reign, because 3390 was the first year, 93 was the second year, 94 is the 3rd year of his reign. And that, my friends, is when the Megillah is going to open. And that background information is not much of it, but it's really, really important, because it's going to explain a lot of what is going on in the Megillah itself. Okay? So that is where we are. I've missed out a couple of small things. At some point at 3390, the temple started to be rebuilt by Cyrus and then was prevented by Achashverosh, but we can leave that for now. We'll come back to that later on. So let us begin the Megillah itself and then try to figure out what is going on. And there's a lot of questions before we even begin. So obviously, everything happening over here in this story, as you can see from the dates that we're looking at, which are important, so write them all down, isn't in the Torah. Make sense? Why is it not in the Torah? I say Torah, I mean the 5 books of Moses. Why not?
It's too late.
Because it's too late. The temple was closed, right? The Bible is closed. Moshe Rabbeinu died many years before, obviously. He didn't make it into Eretz Yisrael. So we're dealing over here, obviously, with a rabbinic holiday. This is rabbinic. All the events and all the mitzvah we're dealing over here are going to be rabbinic, because the Torah itself, the 5 books of Moses, are closed. However, it is in Tanakh. And there's, fortunately, unlike Hanukkah, those were the last semester, where there wasn't too much written on the story of Hanukkah, which was later, right? We'll actually see 400 years after the events happening over here. The events of Purim have lots and lots written on them and have their own entire book called Megillat Esther, which is part of Ketuvim, part of writings from Tanakh. Okay, so we're going to learn a lot from that. And actually there's an entire tractate of Gemara called Megillah that goes through a lot of these. So we're going to have a lot to talk about. We'll try to crunch in as much as we can into this semester. So let's begin. Vayihi b'mei Achashverosh. It was in the days of Achashverosh. What does the word Achashverosh actually mean? Let's write it out in the original Hebrew. Oh, actually, it's not probably Hebrew at this point. Achash, we'll see that it's connected though. What does that word even mean? Achashverosh. So the Gemara says, and we'll see there's a number of other commentaries that talk about this, and say that this isn't a name, it's a title. And we see a couple of words which are hinted at in here? Ach and Rosh. Although that's not how you spell Rosh, but it has the same pronunciation. Rosh. What is it? Ach? Brava. What's Rosh? A head. Right. Or a leader. Right? The Rosh Memshalah, right, is the leader of the country. So Achashverosh means brava and head. Why? Because this guy, Achashverosh, was a brother of another head, of another leader, and who's that? Nebuchadnezzar, just like him. There was no difference. That's what the Me'am Loez tells us, one of the great commentaries on Megillat Esther, and says he was just like his predecessors. He was no, don't think, oh, new leader, he's going to be good to the Jewish people. And if you actually read the Megillah, it's actually a little difficult to see how bad he was. Now, in our modern eyes, he's going to become a monster. Although there is out there, as I always say, the Achashverosh fan club. People who feel sorry for him, think he's just like a, regular guy who's just a king. Don't worry. This semester, you're going to get to learn a lot about him, and you're going to get to hate him. Especially with 2018 eyes. Believe me. He's going to be a hated character. And by the way, he was an evil anti-Semite. Some say even worse than Haman. Even worse than Haman. A different type of anti-Semite, but a Jew hater for sure, but a very brilliant individual. But he was an Achashverosh. He was another leader, just like Nebuchadnezzar who came before him. Right? Achashverosh. There's another hinted. What does mean? Someone says to you, how are you feeling this morning? They're like, They feel good or bad?
Bad.
Bad. Right? You feel That's what they say. They say, he gave a pain, barosh in the head. He gave the Jewish people a headache. Barosh. That's what the commentators tell us, because he kept flip-flopping his decrees. 1 minute this, 1 minute, we're going to see the guy he's going to seem like a Meshuggah, which to some degree was. He was a genius. He was a military genius for sure, right? However, he drove the people absolutely crazy. And he gave the Jewish people a headache with all of his decrees. He was going backwards and forwards. Okay? So let's have a look. Where is he leading from? He was the successor to Cyrus towards the end of the 70 years of the Babylonian exile. We're in the 4th century BCE is where we are. Okay? And we're told he was Hamolech, he ruled Mehodu ad Kush. From Hodu, he ruled from Hodu all the way to Kush. That's what the Megillah tells us. What are these countries today? Do we know? So people speculate. Hodu is probably India, Kush, Ethiopia. So he ruled provinces right through that area. Okay? Right through the area from Hodu. India, we're not too sure. Kush, probably Ethiopia, we're not too sure. But that's where he ruled from. And there were 127 provinces that he ruled over. Right? It's not unusual, but you can have control over areas which are outside of your country. Right? Even like Britain, right? We have a commonwealth, right? That spread. Unfortunately, it doesn't exist anymore. But it spreads right through the world, right? Britain controlled parts of India, parts of Israel. Right? Same thing. You can have a country. So he was ruling from this area. Now, there is a machloket the Gemara talks about between Rav and Shmuel. Rav and Shmuel. Okay? Interestingly, as far as I remember, I don't think it tells us who is who when it comes to who holds which. But actually, Hodu and Kush, these two areas, whatever they are actually not too far away from each other. Right? Let's just say they're like this and like that. Do you see that? So there's a machloket, Rav and Shmuel. One says he ruled from here to here, okay, which is impressive, and is a pretty, The other one says, no. When the Megillah tells us he ruled from Hodu ad Kush, it means he ruled, and he ruled 127. These weren't small, these were large areas, and actually went from here all the way to here. So they're having a machloket about the vastness of the empire that this individual had managed to gather by military conquest, by conquering, by taking previous lands that were conquered by his predecessors that came before him. He was all part of that. Okay? He ruled all over that. The fact that Megillah wants to tell us the amount of provinces that Achashverosh ruled must be important, no? Does this number look familiar to any of you? Have you ever seen this number before? Anyone seen the 127 before? Does that sound familiar? That number should stand out.
The years that Sarah and
Very good. Shani, you got that one? The years that Sarah and Mena lived. I don't know that. Sarah, Avraham Avinu's wife, lived 127 years. You heard that before? Actually, what does it say in the Torah? She lived for 7 years. Then it was Esther Shana, and then Mea Shana. She lived 7, it breaks up 7, 20, 100. Okay, which comes 100. That means she died at 127. Can't be coincidence, can it? So Sarah Imenu lived for 127 years. Must be connected. The Gemara tells the following famous story, and I love this story because it makes me feel better. The great Rabbi Akiva, one of the greatest rabbis of Jewish history. This is the rabbi who grew up knowing nothing about Judaism at the age of 40 years old, and then he learned for 40 years, and then he taught 40, he died 120 years, and he's probably one of the greatest understanders of Kabbalah and intricate Jewish knowledge more than anyone else right through history. He was teaching a class, and people started to fall asleep in his class. That was the bit that makes me feel better. Even the great Rabbi Akiva, right, with all his knowledge, most respected rabbis, people, I was like, if they fall asleep in my class, it's understandable, right? I feel better. So he stopped his class, and he said, I got a question. Why did Esther Hamalka get to rule over 127 provinces? Because eventually we're going to see that Esther is going to rule over these provinces. Why does she get to rule over 127 provinces? What was the answer that he gave? Because her great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother, Sarah Imenu, got to live 127 years. That's what he says. It was in her merit of this amount of years that Esther Hamalka, all those years later, her great-great-great-granddaughter, was going to get to rule, because she's going to end up married to Achashverosh. Sorry to ruin the story for you. Rule over 127 provinces. That's the connection. What's it got to do with it? What is the connection between Sarah Imenu living 127 years? So, in what merit did Sarah Imenu get to live 127 years? So like the Torah tells us, she lived for 7 years, she lived for 20 years, and she lived for 100 years. It breaks it up. Why? It breaks it down by time. There's her childhood years, there's her older years, her growth years, and then her teenagers, if you will, and then we have her for the rest of her life.
But isn't it that she, like, doesn't it say, like, she lived like a 20-year-old?
Yes, meaning she didn't waste a single moment of her life. All of her years were latov, were for good. That's what Chazal tell us. She was precious with time. And her descendant, Esther, had control over space. So Sarah was a master of time, and Esther became a ruler over space. Says the Chidush HaRim, one of the famous commentaries, this is a very famous idea, we learn from here that in Jewish thought, we have to try to take care of time and not waste it. And we should compare it to space, locations. We put a lot of emphasis in where we live and space around us and how much we own, but how much do we actually take in terms of time itself? And if you treat every year like it's a city, every month like it's a village, every day like it's a small town, every hour like it's a house, if we put the same importance in time in terms of space, we can create great things. That's what Chidush HaRim learns out from this 127 and 127 connection between time, take as much control over time, And that is going to lead to greatness for ourselves and our descendants. Time is precious. That's what we learn out from this idea. Oh, so why did Rabbi Akiva tell this seemingly irrelevant story to people? Because kids are falling asleep. They're wasting their time in his class. So he wanted to wake them up by telling them how important time is for us, the Jewish people, because of Sarah Meir taking care of time so well and using all of her life for good, so too her descendant was able to have complete control over so much space. Okay, that's the 127 connection. That's how much he is controlling. Okay.
Yeah, but how do we know if it's like the big round or the small one?
We don't know. It's machloket.
Oh, it's just like
It's just left open. It's machloket, Rav and Shmuel. The decision is not made. We don't know. That's the machloket, and it's left until Mashiach comes and reveals it to us.
But we don't know, like, based on evidence?
No. No.
Like, we don't know if, like, now, like, you find, like...
No. Everything's destroyed. We see it. There is a good book by this guy, Landry, I think his name is, and he has, we can see there's remnants of his palace, of his center, his power. But what happens is when the next leader takes over, he destroys a lot of stuff. So it's very hard to know, right, how he had control over which areas. You know what I'm saying? It's very, very difficult to see. Okay. B'yam Mahem, so those days, we're on verse 2. Follow inside. Kishevet HaMelech Achashverosh. Achashverosh is sitting al kisei malchuto. He is sitting on his throne. Asher b'Shushan Habira is in a city called Shushan, which was the capital of his entire world that he had taken control over. Why does it tell us he is sitting on his throne? Right? He's been sitting on his throne, as we already said, for, look at the next verse, Bishnat Shalosh Lamalko, the third year of his reign. The third year of his reign. Anybody? Why is the Megillah telling us right now, at this point, that he's now settled on his throne? What do you mean he's settled on his throne? Why is that happening now, in the third year? Anyone have a guess? It kind of relates to what we said before.
Because he had to like sit on his throne and like prove his worth because he came in as an outsider and not.
Yes, he came in as an outsider, and he's now become an insider. But what happened that led to that? What is going on that has led to that? Something actually has happened, time-wise, that has really given him, as we say, menuchat nefesh. He's now really calm, and he understands that I'm in a good place right now.
Does that have anything to do with seeing Esther?
Esther is not on the scene yet.
We're going
He's still married to Vashti, we're going to see.
What about the exile? Maybe the exile ended?
Exile, right. You see, Achashverosh also had his calculation, which started, the clock for him started a little bit later. His clock started at a later point, and for him, his mistaken 70-year reckoning has now come to an end. It was 37 years since the end of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, 20 years of Evil Moroni, 3 years of Belshazzar, 5 years of Darius, and 2 years of himself. His 70 years came out to when? 3394. So in Achashverosh's mind, what's happened? 70 years are over. Where are the Jewish people? Still in exile. So what does he think? Jeremiah was wrong. The 70 years are over. The Jewish people haven't returned. The second temple has not been rebuilt. They already started it, and he had halted it. He felt that he had become like a god and had collapsed all hopes of the Jewish people returning to Eretz Yisrael, to the land of Israel. What does he do? He throws a party. Now, if you are Achashverosh, think about it. Remember, you've got to put into this. He is insecure. He's vengeful. He doesn't like the Jews because he stopped the building of the temple. There's a lot about him we know already in context to where we are. He's now delighted the 70 years are over, according to his calculation, and the Jewish people are still stuck in Galut, still stuck in exile. Remember, his calculation was wrong. But that's not the point. In his mind, it's right. So he's going to throw a party. If you threw a party And he's still started his reign a few years earlier. Which is not completely, but he's definitely more. What kind of party would you throw? Just open your heads for a second. What kind of party would you throw?
Awesome.
Small party or a big party?
Small party.
What?
Big party.
Big party. Anyone disagree? Anyone say small party?
Depends. I mean, would you do it exclusive or no? Like.
Now we're getting clever. You see, there's two types of parties, aren't there? There's big parties where you invite everyone, and there's small parties where you invite some people. He, very cleverly, is going to throw two parties. And most people are not aware of that. When we look at the words of the Megillah, we'll see very clearly he's actually going to throw two parties. One party that is massive, that is big, that is extremely actually both ostentatious, but incredibly ostentatious. And he's also going to throw another party. Who's that party going to be for?
Does he throw one for the Jews and one for everyone else?
No. No, he does not divide the Jews and non-Jews. Actually, he's going to try, think about it, to melt the Jewish people into society. Because he wants the Jews to stay. Sounds crazy. He hates them, wants them to stay, right? That's the way it is, right? They hate us, but they still need us. Right? They're crazy, but they're not stupid. It's like when when Ferdinand Isabella, Yamach Shemam, wanted to exile the Jewish people in 1492, they kicked them out, but they said to Don Isaac Abarbanel, right, the great rabbi, the Abarbanel, you stay. You stay. Why? He was their accountant. You know, kick out, he still needs the Jews, you know what I'm saying? Someone's got to watch all the money. He had to be with a trust who can run a good finance house. So he wants to keep all of the same thing over here. He hates us, but we still need the Jews. So he's not going to separate the Jews. Actually, he is going to invite the Jews. And not only invite the Jews, he's going to make it a beautiful meal for them. And he's going to do a lot of things to make them feel welcome, including kosher food and kosher wine and no drinking contest. Because we'll see, usually they would have massive, copious amounts of drinking that go on. But he's not going to do that. Jews are not such big drinkers. We're drinkers, but not too big, hopefully. So he's going to remove that as well. It's all part of a strategy to get the Jews in. So who is the big and small party for? By the way, how big was the big party? Anyone know how long it lasted for? Look inside, it should tell us. 180 days is how long that party is going to last for. That is a 6-month party. Wow.
But that was a
That's
small
like here
party.
at college. Here's a 4-year party. What are you talking about?
But Rabbi, was that the small party or the big party?
That's the big party. That's the big party. At the end, he's going to have a small party. Who does he hold the small party for? Who does he hold the big party for? What difference? He makes a certain difference in strategy when it comes to this. And remember, all of this is there to consolidate his power, keep him in power. That's what dictators are obsessed with, staying in power. He wasn't elected. There's not a democracy. There isn't a democracy yet. That doesn't exist. Right? You got more military, you got the money, you treat people badly, you stay in power. So who's the big party, who's the small party for?
Big parties doing like officers and.
The big party is for all the people, important people coming from the other lands. It's going to take them a long time to get to Paras. Remember, they're coming from far and wide. They've got to bring gifts, they've got to honor him, in some cases worship him, so they're coming from far and wide. Then who's the small party for?
The locals.
Yeah? The around him. The people who live nearby. Why would you think he wants to throw a special party, smaller party, exclusive party, just for the people who lived locally? Why would he want to do that? Why would he want to do such a thing? Anybody?
To treat them more specially. To
Why
show
treat them more specially? Why them? What is he afraid of? Everything is based upon fear and power. So what's he afraid of?
Well, I would think that he kind of wanted to show off to other nations of the world how amazing he was.
That's for sure. That's the big party. Absolutely. Then why don't you do a small party as well?
Don't like him.
He wants everyone to like him. But why them particularly?
To feel special because they can like take over him.
Oh, very good. Yeah, Eden? What are you going to say? Say it.
Yeah, they're more likely to overthrow him.
Exactly. Who is your main threat? Not the people who are 500 miles away, 2,000 miles away, you're being threat of the people who are around you. Right? They're the ones who are going to overtake you. So he wants to keep his friends close, but he wants to keep his potential enemies even closer. Which one of those two parties should you throw first? Big or small?
The big one, because you forget about the small one if you throw the big one.
This is a machloket and a disagreement between Rav and Shmuel. And one of them says Achashverosh was an idiot. He didn't even know what he was doing. The other one says the guy's a genius. He had tremendous strategy.
So then it makes sense to do the smaller one first.
It would make sense to do the smaller one first. That's one side because they're the ones who want to keep the happiest, right?
Yeah.
You want to give them the happiest, and you want to keep that. By doing it afterwards, they basically give them 6 months if they want to overtake you, extra leverage to come and get you.
And they get mad that they
Right.
invited you.
Okay, so now maybe you tell me the other side.
No, because
You tell me the other side.
Because
There is another side. You always fight. You got to fight both sides.
No, okay. The other side is that he wants to make the people from far away happier so that when they leave, they can spread it to other people.
Okay, it could be that as well, right? He wants to keep all the people coming in, and with people nearby think, wow, look at how much power this guy has. He's not some schnook in some little castle, little palace living over here. This guy is ruling a lot of problems. Look at these people are coming to worship him. We better not go against him because they're going to come and get us.
he wanted allies.
He
Just
wanted
in case
allies.
They would.
Right, so he's trying to strategize. I want. So it depends. Some say he was very stupid. Some say he was very stupid for trying to do it that way, and some say he was very, very smart for doing it that way. That's the machloket Rav and Shmuel about the party at the beginning. So now we know what the party is. We know.
You have to know which one said.
No,
Wait, what's
the Gemara doesn't make it clear, by the
We
way.
don't know which
Wait,
one he
the
came first.
machloket is...
He threw the big one first. We'll see that inside. Come, look inside.
Wait.
Yeah.
So what's the machloket if he's stupid or
Is
not?
he, if you're smaller, exactly, should he have done the smaller party first than the big party, or the big party than the small party? Okay? It's almost like the jury is out as to whether he was just acting with great wisdom and strategy, or whether the guy was completely mashugana. It's really, it's not so clear. Okay, let's have a look back inside. So now we understand the second verse, but we're not going to go in so much detail right through, but in the early part of the Megillah, there's a lot of information being built up. He throws a mishta. All the nations that are in front of him, they all come from Persia, Media, and he's really inviting the entire world, if you will, important people, to this party. Look at Dalet. Why does he do this? Why does he do this? And by the way, it mentions Persian first because he was in Persia. Baharo says, Osher Kavod Malchoto. He wanted to show his great wealth. Kavod Malchoto, Ve'et Yakar Tiferet Ugedulato. Now those are important words. Tiferet Gedulato. Let's have a look. Yamim Rabim Shmonim Uma'at Yom. 180 days. That's a 6-month party. What are you showing them? What's he showing them? What did it just say? It doesn't say that. It doesn't say Kesef Zahav. It says Kavod Malchuto et Yakar Tiferet Gedulato.
He wanted to show them that he had power.
How big he is?
He's showing them something very, very specific.
Didn't you mention like
How he had control over everything.
Wasn't the things away from his dish?
Oh,
You mentioned over here that
very, very nice. These words are used in the Torah to describe stuff. What stuff? So Tiferet is used in connection to the Big Day Kahuna. The Big Day Kahuna. What are the Big Day Kahuna? The clothing of the not Kohanim. Kohen Gadol. What's the difference? 4, 8. A regular Kohen wore 4 garments. The Kohen Gadol wore 8 garments. And the Torah itself goes through that. That's the 8 garments that was worn by the high priest, the Kohen Gadol. What does that mean? What does that mean? He dressed up as the Kohen Gadol. And here is the first reference to clothing that we will see in the Megillah. We're going to see clothing being mentioned in different ways. Watch out for them. They're going to be important and they're going to have great relevance for us as well. Not a coincidence. Clothing, and in some cases, lack of clothing, will also be noted and be important. So Tiferet is the clothing of the Kohen Gadol.
Where do we get the...
That's in Shemot, Chaf Chet Bet. We see that it's mentioned over there, and that means he wore all this clothing, which he got. Where did he get stuff from? From Nebuchadnezzar, that's right. It was handed down. And it went down to Belshazzar. And actually in that painting of Rembrandt, which you look up after class, because you wouldn't look on the internet during my class, would you have gotten that? Belshazzar is dressed up in the royal clothing of the Kohen Gadol as well. And Rembrandt, interestingly, depicted him that way. He's wearing the tzitz and the mitznefet, right? And the me'il, and all the different garments that the Kohen Gadol wore. Why would he do that? Why is he getting dressed with the Kohen Gadol? Why is he doing this? What's his point? Why does the Megillah go out of its way, and it's going to tell us there's a lot of gold and silver there as well. And that's going to be coming from the Beit HaMikdash as well. But why is he dressed with the Kohen Gadol? What point is he making? What point did his predecessor Belshazzar, what was he making dressed up as the Kohen Gadol? What's he saying? Yeah, Eden?
Asserting their dominance, that like they are leaders. They took over like all the Jewish stuff and like now they're wearing
That there's no-
But why that? Why did he dress up as, I don't know, a Jewish king or something?
because to us the Kohen Gadol is like a very
The
high-
spiritual leader, his main position was the Beit HaMikdash. What's he saying? You Jews, you're not going back. I am your new high priest. It's all about me right now. Forget your temple. Forget your sacrificial services that you want in your Beit HaMikdash. Temple's gone. It's not coming back. I'm your new leader. Look at me in the Kavod and Tiferet. I am your new leader. I am the splendor. I am your new royalty. I am the leader of your people. Right? That's what he did. This was tremendous chutzpah. If you were a Jew at that time, would you have gone to this party? That's the big question you have to figure out. And this is a big discussion in the Talmud.
Was it a choice?
If you were a Jew, would you go to this party? Sure, it's a choice. They had a choice to go and not go. They could have made a stand. Would there be repercussions? Possibly. Fatal ones? Not necessarily. Would you have gone? Well, let's look at it again. Why would I go? Why wouldn't I go? Why would I go? Why wouldn't I go? Give me both sides.
Free food.
Hmm?
Free food.
You're nervous or something's gonna happen.
Free food. Jews don't miss out on that.
To show that you're not rebelling.
I'm with you. I'm going to go to the White House because I want to show that I'm part of your people. Right? We don't get this guy. This guy's a sugar man. This guy's crazy. Right? Here's what I does. I'll just go. I'll eat the kosher food. I won't overdrink. I'll show my respects. And I'll leave. That makes sense. And that's what all the Jews did. Except one person. One person took it upon himself. And by the way, don't think the Jewish people were too happy he did this. Not everyone was too happy they actually went ahead and did this. And he did not go to the party. Now we'll see, there's other reasons why he did not go to this party. There's other reasons why he did not go to this party. A lot of it to do with the tribe he came from and the mission that he had among the Jewish people. That's going to be a big, big part of this. That's going to be a big, big part of this. And we're going to meet him later on. But Mordechai is going to be the one person who does not go to the party. Why should they not have gone to the party? Because they're consolidating and they're celebrating and they're partying with this Meshugana dressed up as the high priest and eating the food and drinking from goblets and silver and gold that came from the Beit HaMikdash and sitting on the beautiful gold and silver that came from the Beit HaMikdash. What a mockery. Wow, they gave in. They threw it all away. You forgot Israel so quickly, you forgot Beit HaMikdash, now you're partying with this guy? and you're so broken that you can't even stand up for this? According to the Gemara, there is an opinion that the reason they got into so much trouble and why this all turned south and Haman took power was because the Jewish people went to this party. They should have stood up for themselves and should have said, no, oh, you don't want it? I'll give you someone worse or as bad as Achashverosh in order to contend with. Okay. Let's look inside the Megillah one more time. On verse 5, he made for the people in Shushan Habira, Megadol, and Hatan, great and small people. Mishteh Shivat Yamim. See, there's a 7-day party. Can you see that? You never noticed that before, did you? There's now a 7-day party, just as the people that was held there in the king's palace. That was there in the king's palace. Okay. We shall stop over there. Next class we will continue with our Megillah, and we're going to find out a little bit more about what was happening at this party. Have a great day.